afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Lisa Kirsch, and our friends from Gardner Supply Incorporated stopping by again today. David Herman is joining us now, and we are talking lawn today, start to finish. Where do we start? You buy this house, and you have this big empty backyard.
Right.
There's a lot more involved in putting that lawn in place than just grabbing some seed. And so you're here today to talk about options and where to begin. So we are at square one. Go. What do we do?
Sure. Yeah. It's a great opportunity. You've got this yard. It looks scary because it's all dirt, maybe some weeds. So it's a lot of work, but it's a great opportunity to start the growing zone. Water's going to drain, things are going to grow and serve you well here forward. The beginning is being a little bit harder, but then later on, you're not going to fight the yard as much. And we want the yard to serve us. We don't want to be subservient to the yard.
So what I'm hearing is you start off with a good knowledge of what you need and what you're getting into,
Right.
and you make the lawn what you need it versus letting it grow wild and then trying to problem solve down the road.
Right. And
Love
one
it.
thing we'll do at the beginning, we've talked about before, is testing that soil. We have to see what kind of soil profile you have. Some people have a sandy soil, some people have clay soil. Most people don't have a lot of organic material. So I did the soil sampling in my own yard just to see what was going on, had that write up, and then I was ready to go through the yard. So I just want to take you through that to see what I've had to do, what a lot of people are going to have to do too. If they take the time, it will serve them well.
Wonderful. So we start at the very beginning, that is with the soil sample.
That's right. The soil sample. Then you get an idea of, okay, do I need some organic material? Do I need some sulfur? Do I need some limestone? Those things come from the tests, and they're not very difficult to do, but they're very foundational moving us forward. So if you take a look, I went ahead, took those samples, and I realized I was very short on organic material. So I brought in a lot of organic material, and this is what really takes time, and this is probably your biggest expense actually up
This is
front.
your backyard.
This is my backyard. So we started off with just dirt, and I've slowly worked through that. We found that I needed about a ton of material. That's maybe 4 to 5 yards of material for every 1,000 square feet. I have about 1,200 square feet, so I took these bags and I had some guys from work help me space them out. You'll see in the next one, when we opened up the bags, I wanted you to see what it was going to look like. The mounds are going to kind of pile high, and then as you look at the next slide, you're going to see as we begin to spread it out, it's about 2 to 3 inches deep. So when you rototill that in, that's going to work its way in about 9 inches deep, and you're amending about 30% of your soil, which means you're changing 1/3 of your soil profile so that water drains through, fertilizers are going to work, grass roots are going to penetrate. Of course, you've got to do the hard work of rototill in and in now. And this picture shows, if you look very closely, it's that sometimes process isn't most important, or our product isn't most important, but process is. That's my daughter with Matt, and so we're taking our time working it in. And then, of course, Matt got a little busy later and making sure we went really, really deep with this material so that we have that good growing zone from the get-go.
Now, not everyone may have this in their garage. So is this something they can rent from you?
Not from us. You
Okay.
can go to United Rentals or GCI.
You can point us in the right direction.
And get the strongest one you can. I work with some weaker ones, and you'll wear yourself out. So getting a good rototiller is crucial.
Okay.
And, of course, Matt is crucial, too. So we rototill all these into the soil. And then if you look at the next slide, you'll see after this, we went ahead and set our curbing and our irrigation. You do it after so that beforehand, you're not worrying about hitting pipes. You're not worrying about hitting your curbing. So you've got a lot of room to work without that there. And in the previous slide, we don't need to go there, but you could see I didn't spread it everywhere because I knew where pathways were going to go, where curbing was going to go, where rock and brick were going to go. So
you went
you
back
just
to the initial plan. You mapped this thing out from the beginning.
Yeah, it's really helpful to map it so you know where you're going and take your time, and then you're not wasting material and getting down what you need, certainly. So then you can set your irrigation, make sure you're using good pop-ups, you're spacing them well. And you're going to see when you do set your curbing, you're going to kind of raise it up, and it's sitting up above. So to the right, I put in some rocks, so there were places people were going to trip, and for some aesthetic look. And on the inside, I had to bring in more fill dirt. And then I tested that fill dirt, and I amended that fill dirt as well, so that the dirt all the way down 12, 15 inches is very, very healthy and well prepared. Right. So that you can see after this, we have the soil ready. It's flattened. I spent some time making sure it was good and level. And of course, I've done work in the other parts of the yard, but focusing primarily on the lawn. Now you can spread the seed. So one of the problems is people want to jump to seed too soon.
Right.
So here, I'm finally jumping to seed after several weeks of work. When I get the seed spread, then I'm taking a rake and I'm lightly scratching it in, just barely scratching it in. That seed, when it begins to germinate, really has to hit soil. If it hits air, it dies. So leaving the seed lay on top is not the best way to go. You really have to get it scratched in. So I took the time to scratch it in real lightly. And then in the next slide, you can see I also laid out a bit of a topper. This is a compost spreader that lays the topper out about 1/8 of an inch thick, maybe a little less. And what that does is when you begin to water, it just holds the moisture. And you need the moisture to be held there for the seed so that it can germinate and not die. So here I spread it out, and you can see in the next, I have it pretty much spread out totally. It took about 8 or 10 bags. It doesn't take a lot of bags to lay it as a topper. But again, that's kind of your insurance. That's your moisture barrier. In the next slide, you can see I'm just filling in a few spots because that happens as you go. You have to come back and touch up and fill in. Now, the next slide is really important. Not very interesting, but very important. The all-important sprinkler
yes,
box.
the
Yes,
sprinkler
you're going to have to
box.
tackle this and look at
We've
the
met.
programs. Most have, and the meeting was short and walked away frustrated.
Yeah.
We can help people figure out how to set these, but you really need those sprinklers to be going off 4 times a day.
4 times a day. I am writing this down. I'm having lawn issues 4 times
7
a day.
a.m., 10 a.m., 1 p.m., 4 p.m. And we usually say anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes.
2 to 5 minutes.
We've got to keep the seed moist. We can't let it dry out, and we can't let it flood. So the first couple of days you're going to watch to see, does it begin to flood or does it begin to dry out? Depending upon that, you're going to have to back the sprinklers off or increase them. But the point is keeping the seed moist. So that's really, really important. Not very exciting, but that's a really point you need to look at is wrestling with that sprinkle box, and we can help do that too. So now to the results, now to the fun part. It took about 2 weeks, but now you start to see these tiny grass shoots. You wonder if anything's happening the first couple of days. You wonder if all the money and time you spent was for naught.
And you have to keep the kids and the dogs, everything off.
Preferably
Rope
so.
it off. Okay.
I know that not everybody can do that, but to the best of your ability, that just increases your results. So slowly, you see things coming up, but then surprisingly, what you see fastest and strongest and biggest are weeds. They grow very fast. I had a lot of puncture vine because we're close to some ag fields. Typically, I'll encourage people not to pull their weeds because it pulls and damages the root structure of the new seedlings around them. I went ahead and pulled these because I know they turn into those little goat heads. The rest I left alone because we can spray and pull later on when the grass is established. But don't be shocked. The first 2-3 weeks, all you see are very, very healthy, big, strong weeds.
I'm growing weeds. Okay.
So after a little while, you start seeing a little haze, and those are those little seedlings that are coming through. And yeah, you can see the bigger weeds too, but the grass is starting to catch up. I think this is about week 3, 2 or 3. Now you start seeing some tufts growing faster than others. And you're thinking, yes, that's exactly what I was hoping for. Why is the rest taking so long? But that's normal. Those little seedlings are just catching up. Some germinate faster than others, the way water hits, the way fertilizer hits. About week 4, you'll start seeing some really tall, beautiful tufts, and you wish your whole lawn was that way. Be patient, it will be. So the other seedlings are starting to catch up. You still see a few bare spots. That's not too surprising either. A little bit later, you still see the same, but more and more is filling in. It's starting to look like, okay, maybe my plan is unfolding, right?
Yes.
So as we move along, you can see after about 6 weeks, it's starting to fill in nicely. I would say it's about 50% filled in. Some areas are like a forest. My kids loved walking through those few spots, wondering if the whole grass would be that way someday. Next, we see about week 7, you have a few spots that are a little darker green than others, but it's pretty well filled in. There's still a few, not bare spots, but thinner spots. If you were to walk through it and over the top of it, you would see that, but it's much closer to what you expect to normal. And then as you get to the last slide, you're going to see, I didn't cut it on purpose, so it was a little bit shaggy, so you can kind of see where those spots were that hadn't fully filled in yet. But I cut it just 2 days ago, and I would say it's about 85 to 90% filled in. So this is going from seed. It's a lot less expensive than going from sod. You can certainly do that. It's less expensive, so I didn't mind taking the time and going through the procedure. It's the same procedure whether you do seed or sod, preparing the soil. The only difference is sod looks done when it's laid, and it's not. It still has to tack. The root structure still has to work down through the soil. It takes a good 5-6 weeks for it to establish, just like this seed takes. They'll be established in almost the same amount of time. So whether it's seed or sod, you're going to want to be careful with it the same amount of time. With fertilizers, with pre-emergence, with post-emergence, when you start putting chemicals or even putting traffic on it, they're going to need about the same amount of time. So if you've got the patience, you've got the time, you can save a little money and learn a lot about the process.
And it makes a really nice slideshow for the real estate show. So we appreciate you doing it this way so we
Absolutely.
can see it.
No, and I want people to know that it takes time, and you'll have some expectations that don't seem to be met at first, and just knowing that going into it helps you.
I do have a couple of questions. One of them is about the optimal planting season. Is there a time that you definitely should not try to plant grass here in Kern County?
Well, this is Bermuda grass, a warm season grass. We love June, July, early August at the latest. It needs heat. It loves the heat. The heat will assist it.
We have that.
We do, and as you can see in my yard, it moved relatively quickly. We will pull cold season grasses usually in the fall. The reason is there's still long enough days, still warm enough days, but the weed seed germination begins to taper off. So when it comes to ryegrass and fescue, or what we call a Bakersfield mix, it's a much better time to do it then. You can do those cool season grasses in April and in March or May, but you're going to get a lot more weed seed that develops with it. So a lot of people do the cooler season grasses in the fall.
The Bakersfield blend, I like that. I think we're onto something with that. Also, how do you know how much seed you need to buy? I mean, if you're just walking around thinking, I need to start this, how do I know how much I need? All your bags of organic material. I know there's some kind of a formula.
Right. The warm season grasses are about 1 pound per 1,000 square feet. So it's not very much material. People are usually surprised to see the small containers and think that they have to buy something much larger. The reason is because the cool season grasses need 10 pounds per 1,000 square feet, 10 times the amount. So if you're ever used to putting ryegrass down in the fall or anything, you're used to seeing a certain amount. And it's just very different with the Bermuda grass. A lot of people don't even realize we also have hybrid Bermuda from seed. So you don't have to get stolons, you don't have to get sod. You can actually plant that from seed too.
And another question I have, this is just regarding my own yard, is that I know that it gets thatched out and then replanted, and it always comes back in and looks really nice, and I pay someone to help me do that, of course.
Sure.
But is that ever, do you need to give you need to rest between crops sometimes? Do you ever need to rest your yard?
With the Bermuda grass, it is really good to dethatch it each year because the root structure builds
and we're
up
just
a thatch.
getting rid of the roots is what we're doing, letting it breathe. Or
On the
make
top
room.
part, and it allows the water to penetrate better, the fertilizer to penetrate, so it can grow healthier. It's so aggressive that we have to thin it out. Now, the first year that you plant it, though, like mine, I will not dethatch it this fall. I want that root structure to really establish. I'll wait till next year to dethatch it or even plant a ryegrass in the fall. The cool season grasses, we can plug them. We don't really need to dethatch them. Sometimes you have to fill in with some seed because they grow differently. If there's a damaged spot, it's not going to heal. We're going to have to put some new seed down. Usually not so with Bermuda.
Okay. And water conservation, very big in the news right now.
Right.
My biggest fear is I'm going to get a water wasting ticket, and I don't know if I'm going to cut my water restriction or my water use down so much that my lawn's going to die. Is there a happy medium? What can we do? How do we know if we're overwatering our yards?
Sure. Well, the biggest thing to keep in mind is just proper stewardship. We've got a yard. We need to take very well care of it. We just need to know what it needs and how to get it what it needs. Grasses need about 2 inches of water a week. That's just how it is in Bakersfield in the summer. Well, how are we going to do that without wasting it? Some people need to pulse irrigate, where they water a few times through the day, a couple hours apart, to avoid the water runoff. Others just need to have their sprinklers adjusted or maybe even heads replaced so the proper type of water is being applied. Make sure it's not watering the concrete. Concrete doesn't need the water. Right?
I have got some nice concrete. I don't know.
I have bubblers to my trees. I have drip irrigation to my gardens. I have pop-ups to my lawns. And it's the right type of watering to each plant that it needs as well. Those usually dial us in along with soil samples. Is water penetrating in the soil? Is our pH balance? So the things that we're putting out are metabolizing. So really coming back to some basics before we really get too frightened or make some drastic cuts or shutting off water. Let's see if we can dial in what they need first.
Where can people get that information? Where can they find you?
Come on down to Gardner Supply, just off Land Code Rosedale Highway, half-mile west of Costco.
You guys open 7 days a week?
Oh, no, we take some time off.
Very good.
Tuesday through Saturday.
You have to work on your yard sometimes.
8 to 5, that's right. Yeah, maintaining that, it's a joy, though.
David, thank you so much for sharing this.
Our
We
pleasure.
cannot wait till the invite for the barbecue. I already saw your barbecue back there. I forgot to mention that in one of the pictures. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us, and people know where to find you if they have questions. We look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, Lisa.
Right here on The Real Estate Show. When we come back, Diana Kennedy of Guild Mortgage is joining us, and today we're going to test your knowledge of mortgage terms. It's going to be a lot of fun. Don't go anywhere. The Real Estate Show continues right after this on Bakersfield.com.